So I'm Shubha. The best way to remember my name is Shoebox without an X. So hopefully that makes it a little easier. Then let me also introduce the company that I'm with. This company is called LoopCommerce. We were acquired by Synchrony last year. Synchrony is the world's largest retail private label credit card. And we are, at Loop, the world's largest gifting company. So we're not vertically integrated. We don't have warehouses where we ship gifts. What we do is partner with retailers to be able to bring gifting opportunities in various instances, whether it is you and I wanting to give gifts to our friends and family, or it's in a commerce situation, it's in a contextual social situation, like you're looking at a Facebook reminder for a birthday and there are like a few gifts there, corporate gifting, gift cards. You'd be amazed at the multi-billion-dollar opportunities of actually each one of these. So we are an online gifting company. We believe we've created this category called G-commerce. And we also believe we're kind of Silicon Valley's best kept secret. And why I wanted to introduce Loop is because if you are actively looking for roles, Loop is hiring across the board. So I probably introduced myself a little bit as I was doing that. So I head product at LoopCommerce. I have this incredible opportunity of working with some extremely talented professionals across the board, but also which is at the forefront in terms of the category defining and changing company in e-commerce. And don't take my word for it, but actually read about it. G-commerce and gifting commerce is truly considered the next innovation in e-commerce. And I think all my background in terms of eBay and Walmart.com, I'm very fortunate to be here at this company to be able to lead product there. I'm also a product mentor at a couple of different accelerator programs, 500 startups, founders institutes. You may have heard of these names. What initially started off with hey, I want to be able to give back to the community, ended up being I get so much more back in return because I'm always energized by these fresh ideas that people bring to the table in terms of what is the next thing out there and people who want to change the world. I think it really helps me in my job. I'm also a board advisory member and angel investor in like 3 different companies. One of the companies is probably something that you've heard, Winnie Bee. Have you heard of Winnie Bee? It's an e-commerce company for plus size kind of individuals, but it is truly one of the more game-changing kind of e-commerce company. A couple of other companies which I truly believe will change the world someday. So that's just a little bit about me. I do want to state that I have a bit of a traditional background in terms of product management. I started off as an engineer, then as a QA manager, and then decided I wanted to go more onto the business side. Came to the United States, did my MBA, and then became a product manager at eBay. So I did have a traditional background, but having now been in that field now for 15 years, I can unequivocally say that there is no typical path to becoming a product manager. One of my best PMs had a background in music, had a bachelor's in music. And I think those are some of the interesting things now about how product management are actually evolving, in that it is becoming truly equal and democratizing of the people that are actually accepted. So it's a great time to do product management. Okay, so why product for me? People do product management for different reasons. I'd like to say that it's definitely not for the faint-hearted, because every day is different and every day is it's not just one challenge, it's like 10 different challenges. So you have to enjoy liking challenges. I love to build stuff. I love to take a concept that any other member in the team says, I wish we had this feature to be able to have a faster checkout. And to be able to take that concept and actually build a product and an experience and actually impact consumers and customers with it is something that I'm really, really passionate about. I've been very fortunate that I've actually been on the consumer product side for about 15 years now, so I actually get to see the impact of what I do very quickly and at scale, whether it was at eBay or now at Loop. And I like to solve problems through technology. So if there is a problem related to faster checkout, slower checkout, or if there's a problem related to too much information, if there's a problem related to lack of discovery, like, the one problem that we're trying to solve right now in gifting is, how do we engage and discover and get people engaged on actually finding the right gifts and actually completing that gifting experience? How do we get partners in that ecosystem engaged enough to be able to buy into that vision? I mean, these are all real problems that we're trying to solve, and I love to be able to be part of that in terms of actually solving those problems. Imagination. So one of the things, you will hear more of my, analysis on what makes a great product manager. There's one thing that I cannot re-emphasize, which is the fact that I think product managers must have a lot of imagination. Product management is a job that works under a lot of constraints. Oh, you can't do that, and there's this technical constraint, there's this design constraint, there's the business constraint, we don't have enough money to do this, and a product manager is somebody who kind of steers the ship, and despite these constraints, takes the ship to the right destination. So you have to have a vivid imagination of not only what you can achieve with those constraints, but also what you can achieve without those constraints. And actually communicating that, I think, is really important as a product manager, and it's a skill that I constantly am developing, but I feel like as the head of product, I have the opportunity to be able to do that more and more. Relationships. So as I said, I have a pretty typical product management background. I also have the personality that's a little typical to product management. I'm an extrovert person. I like working with people. I can never work from home. I love the concept of working in an office, whiteboarding, discussing, debating. But again, let me re-emphasize that there is no typical role or profile to product management. I just happen to be a little bit more typical. And that's okay. Entrepreneurial, I haven't founded my company. I don't have plans of founding a company anytime soon. But I do feel, so I'm not an entrepreneur, but I do feel there are skills that are entrepreneurial within myself, which is about, having worked at, this is my third startup now. Actually, if you ask Roy, our CEO, he probably would say it's not a startup anymore, right? Because we're fast growing that way. And we just moved into this beautiful downtown Mountain View space, which can house like 150 people. So we're really excited about that, and we're really growing very fast. But I'm entrepreneurial from the standpoint of I can work with very limited resources. I can work under these constraints. I'm pretty resourceful. I can figure out a way despite a lot of constraints and challenges being posed on me, and I do feel that's one of my strengths. And I do feel that is a good product management strength in kind of general. So that's just a little bit about why I spent 15 years of my life doing product management. You have to really believe in the craft, and I truly believe I'm at a place right now where my skills and my strengths, and in an industry that I am really passionate about, and in a company that I love going to work for every day. So what have I got on tap for you today? So my slides, the initial slide said, what makes a great product manager? So I'll tell you a little bit about why this is even a topic. And as cheesy as it may sound, actually there is, hopefully there is something that you can get out of this in terms of what makes a great product manager, and hopefully this sparks the interest in you to be able to be one. And maybe you're already one and you'll kind of find yourself. Some key themes of what makes a great product manager. And I actually did a survey. One of in my engineering, kind of thing in terms of actually being analytical and having the data to be able to back up my stories. So I actually did a survey with some of my product management peers. They were very generous in sharing some of their information, and I have some details about what product management leaders and managers across the board are actually looking for in terms of like great product management skills. I'd love to kind of bring that to you guys and tell you guys a little bit about that, and hopefully that can help you not only in your jobs but also talking through it, in like an interview setting, for instance. So context. As I said, I started doing product management almost 15 years ago, when people did not even know what the heck product management was. We kind of navigated our way through this, and I was one of those eager beavers that put up my hand to do the things that other people were hesitant to do, and kind of paved my way through this. And obviously every product management culture and every product management team is very different. But now I can say that having been through it, again, as I said, my third startup and being where I am right now, product management is an indispensable part of every company's DNA, if not technology company's DNA. It is indispensable. However, as I said, every company and every organization operates very differently. I have a LinkedIn post out there for a senior PM. A couple of my director level posts, I don't even have it out there. For my LinkedIn post, for the last month and a half, I have 450 applications. You could say 200, half of those are not relevant, and that's fine. Even if those are not relevant, 225 relevant applications for a single role in a startup that I bet before I came here, nobody had heard of LoopCommerce. It is truly the best kept secret in Silicon Valley, I feel, but even I have a lot of applications to consider. There is an explosive interest in doing product management and in product management career movement. And this unofficial reports peg it at 100x, meaning there are 100 times more people either wanting to do product management or doing product management related jobs than they were in the past decade. That is a lot. What does that mean? This is like if you study the growth of companies or civic societies that have this kind of growth in terms of population, what that does lead to is the rise of the middle class. And I say this with all humility and in all humility as a hiring manager, that I do see that there are areas that I feel like people are doing well in, but I'm always curious, what does best in that area actually mean? So that's my thesis and my kind of research around, which is really understanding kind of what tips the scale in terms of, that large middle class of like 80%, like the 10%, they don't do the greatest job with probably what they have and the skills. They're not probably the right fit for product management. That's easy to recognize. There's the other 10% that do the job extremely well. I'm very interested in that. There's about 80% of the people in the middle who do the job, but what I'm really interested in, what gets it from the good to the better. So that's my thesis, and that's kind of what the thinking that I've been actually debating within myself and like looking within myself and looking at my team and all of that across the board, which again I ran the survey about that I'd love to share some insights with you. So I think the question is, I think we should ask ourselves, and we have the luxury of asking this of ourselves because there are so many different flavors of product management, is what kind of a product manager do we want to be? And I think that's an important question that hopefully and this is actually one of my interview questions that I'm actually giving out, but I think it's an important self-reflective question in terms of not just technically, like are you a data PM or are you a consumer, like not just that, but like truly what is your strength? What is the one or two things that you do better than everybody else and that you feel really confident about, and giving examples of that. So context in terms of this is why I think for me the study of what makes a great product manager is truly important, because it is the time right now, if you want to be able to stand out, because there are a lot of people who want to do the same thing as you want to do and do the same job as you want to do. So I think that's kind of my thought process on why this topic is very important for me. So I'm going to talk about a couple of key themes. We as product managers and the folks, at least more than half of the folks here, mentioned that you have product management experience. We face these in our work life very almost on a daily basis. How do you validate if your product idea is on the right track or not, and how do you do that quickly? How do you evaluate a product launch success? And third, how do you align conflicting product ideas? Now, what I'm going to walk you through a framework is, if you're an OK product manager, if you're doing your job, you will look at it a certain way. But what I'm really interested in is what separates the good versus the best. And so what I'm going to give you some tips and tricks is to be able to say not just this, but also think about other things to be able to make that more holistic. So do we all agree that these are three things that we do face in our product management jobs? Yeah? Okay. Cool. All right, so let's then get to it. So the first one, how do you validate if your product ideas, and how do you validate them quickly? We hosted a women in product event in our company. Was it last week? Oh, yeah, it feels like such a long time ago. And I was at this desk where we were actually talking about how to validate. And I think what interestingly came out is people thought, oh, validate, we have to look at KPIs, And I think what I was able to hopefully give the insight in that group is that this is actually even before you are launching a product. How do you even know that you're launching the right product or not? How do you even know that the feature suggestion that you have is the right thing or not? You could say user test. Let's run a user test. Let's get the data. User test, however, has its limitations. because you are showing something to the user, and the user is inclined to actually respond to that. How do you even know that that is the right thing that you should actually show them? So that's what I want to get to in terms of like validating product ideas. So the typical approach that all of us have probably heard a million times in our lifetime is MVP, minimum viable product. Right? There are lovers of this approach, there are haters of this approach, kind of in between. Because I think it works for some areas, it doesn't work for some areas. But traditionally MVP, right? Build it quickly, build it fast, put it out there. Customers will tell you if you like it, if you don't. And then you know that if you're on the right track or not. But my question was, how do you even know that that's the MVP that you're actually building? Even building an MVP is not zero effort. You're going to put a few engineers and designers to work. How do you even know that that is the right direction or not? So here are some interesting, hopefully interesting takeaways for you. Build a prototype. Even before you actually get to a minimum viable product, have your design team go to Upwork, get a prototyping expert for like 40, 50 bucks an hour, build a prototype, and actually put something out there as a test bed. That will help you get much better feedback than, say, a paper prototype or a survey or like a focus group, for instance. If you had to take it one step further, test the hypothesis of what you're actually building the product for. And the next step is test the outcome. So let me give you an example of this. So I had the incredible fortune when I was at Walmart.com to be the first lead PM on Walmart Grocery. I was the first PM who actually built Walmart Grocery. I think Walmart Grocery right now has like 25 PMs. It's grown into such a big business. This was 10 years ago. Me and 3 developers built the first prototype for Walmart Grocery. Incredibly fortunate to be in that area. If we had just built the grocery product and put it out there without testing these, I doubt if we would have actually been at this stage where we truly build a delightful product. So what are the things that I did during that time? There are 2 things that I did. One, we had a notion of who Walmart Grocery, the target audience, would be for. It would be for the busy working mom to be able to help them save time, save money, so that the groceries arrive at your doorstep. Now, here's the interesting thing about testing the hypothesis. What we realized is that that hypothesis was vastly different in different geographies. In the San Francisco Bay Area and in New York, Walmart is not associated with grocery. If anything, Walmart and grocery don't actually go very well together. So if we had to decide where to test this product, because we had tested that hypothesis in different geographies, we knew that a good testing bed would not be the San Francisco Bay Area and New York. We had to test it somewhere else. And we decided to test it actually in Bentonville, Arkansas. That was a different reason for actually doing that in terms of supply chain and the logistics that is there associated with it. But we're building it here in San Bruno. And so I think the logical thing is, let's just test it in Burlingame. It wouldn't have worked in Burlingame, and thank God it did not, because we did not do that because I tested the hypothesis. The second thing is test the outcome. So if this is really intended to save time and save money for these busy wives and moms and working professionals, test that hypothesis not only from an adoption standpoint, but actually sit down and see the expression on their faces. And when you actually saw the expression of a mom who had this birthday party to organize, and she just had no time to be able to get everything together, and everything just comes to her doorstep, including the fresh juice and the breads and the cheeses and everything on like a Friday evening, so that she can do that party on a Saturday morning, is immense validation of your product. Now, there is no metric that can measure that. You have to sit down with your customer and be able to experience that. And I was very fortunate to have actually experienced that in different geographies of rolling out Walmart Grocery. Does that make sense in terms of testing the hypothesis, testing the outcome, validating the idea, and mostly transitioning to kind of the minimum delightful product, which we use a lot at Loop right now, which is about not just building the product and throwing it out there, but actually building something that customers will use and love and appreciate. All right, how do you evaluate product launch success? If I didn't show you guys this slide, the most common things is KPIs. measure KPIs, set KPIs, measure KPIs. Everybody does that. We're talking about what separates a good and a great PM, right? So nowadays in interviews when I hear, how do you measure a launch success? And they're like, oh, we set the KPIs and we measure it. And I'm like, okay. And there is not much more. And I think that's where, hopefully this is useful for you guys in terms of saying, KPIs is only one part of the story. ROI is important. You as a product manager should have the ability to be able to do a back of the envelope ROI. Now I don't mean to have you to do an ROI at the level of like what an investment banker would actually do it at, or your corporate finance analyst would actually do it at. But you should have a sense with your project manager or your dev manager to say, how many man hours did this take? What is it that we realized out of it, or what is it that we are realizing out of this? And is that worth it or not? The second is degree of differentiation. We underestimate this, but actually, it's really important to be able to differentiate yourself in the market. When we did Walmart Grocery, Safeway Grocery was already in place. Webvan had failed. So we didn't have much going for us. I mean, Safeway, not that Safeway Grocery was like was going gangbusters. I mean, I think online grocery overall as a market has grown and is doing really well, but we didn't have great precedence. We actually did not even have great adoption. So if we had looked at traditional KPIs, which is number of orders, number of people adopting it, number of geographies, we would have probably failed in every area on possibly every metric. But what we did do differently is we differentiated ourselves much better than the existing product that is out there. We had a few features that were actually a little different and unique, so people actually tended to use us more than the competitive product. We spent very little time developing the MVP from like Walmart standards. So we were able to achieve a higher level of ROI from a big company standpoint than what traditionally would have been to be able to achieve a big program like that. And more importantly, level of positive customer emotion. This goes back to, when you actually sit down and when those moms and wives are just absolutely thrilled that that thing is just showing up at your doorstep. You want to be part of that, and you want to be able to scale that. Sorry. Those are the things that kind of keep you going. So how do you evaluate product success is much more nuanced than KPIs. Yes, you should have KPIs. But you should also have a sense of whether this is the best return of investment for your company. You should have a sense of how much is the degree of differentiation between your product and the other products that is there out there in the market, or what is the plan to get there. And you should ultimately build something that has a positive customer emotion. So I think these are all the ways of really amping up the evaluating product launch success. So I surveyed an independent group of hiring managers, product hiring managers, these are all people in my network who are product management managers of product managers and product management leaders who basically hired, they have a team, a sizable team where they can actually notice differences in terms of like quality of work and things like that. It's from product leaders and for product managers that are 0 to 5. That's why I asked you how many 0 to 5 are there, and it's probably like 70% of you guys, which is really great. So hopefully you have some insights from here in terms of what really separates a good versus a great product manager. These are all from hiring managers in different product management fields. I randomized this because I did not just look at consumer, because I'm in consumer, in the industry. I did it across enterprise. I did it across different functions in terms of like data PMs, AI PMs, consumer, technical PMs, platform PMs. I really did it across the board. And my goal was to be able to get insights from cross-functional team members, peers, and that's my ultimate goal. Like, I would love to get this to not just product management leaders, which is what it is right now, but here's my imagination to you guys, which is I'd love to get this research to the level of I want to question engineering managers who worked with product managers and actually ask them what skills actually stand out. I want to ask design managers what stands out. I want to ask project managers. I want to ask executives. I want to ask sales teams. That's my North Star. I'm not there yet. So this results is basically just from product leaders who have managed teams and who are conveying their preferences and intent in terms of the skills that separate good and great. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's get to it. So what were my survey questions? So the survey questions that I had were, you have to keep things like this a little simple. So I started off with this really long survey, and I was looking at it going, okay, MVP, MDP, So it basically came down to, what are the 3 top functional skills that separate, that make a great product manager? What are the 3 personal attributes that make a great product manager? And what's the number 1 strength that you feel great PMs have? So it's basically just a 3-pronged question, three questions. So top 3 functional skills, top 3 personal attributes, top strength of a great product manager who has worked for or with you. So it's kind of very simple. And most of the people, actually 90% of them, actually responded with worked for you. So this was mostly people who had worked in their teams. Okay, so top functional skills. I gave them a bunch of options. As you can see, feature prioritization, sprint planning, product market fit, customer research, business case development, MVP definition, design thinking. Gave them a bunch of things. Actually, there's more that I actually gave them. This is just a sample. The number 1 functional skill of a top and great PMs is product market fit. And let's talk about what product market fit actually is. It means different things to different people. The second thing is translating business to technical. So truly being that bridge between business and technical. And the third is strategy. And let's talk a little bit about what actually strategy means, because my network who actually did this, took the survey, was very generous in giving me a lot of verbatim comments. So I have a lot of comments in terms of what actually these mean. So let's talk about product market fit. So what was very interesting for me is I totally thought it would be feature prioritization. It would be, I had things like requirements definition. I mean, come on, haven't we spent so much of our lives as a product manager developing requirements? I'd be like, that is the number 1 skill. But what these skills are actually very strategic skills. These are less tactical and much more strategic. So for me, my small insight from my small survey is that product management is becoming a much more strategic field than what we probably anticipated to be. And we have to train ourselves and gear ourselves and be ready for that. The writing the requirements, functional specs, all of that is important, but not as important as writing the right requirements, or for who and for which market and what problem we're solving for, and having a clear view about that. And obviously we don't control everything. We might sometimes be given what to do, but to be able to actually have the voice to be able to say, I'm doing X, Y, Z, totally fine, but is this the right thing to do? And I think this is a conversation that I'm hoping we're all having with our managers. Yeah. Okay. Top personal attributes. So, attention to detail, comfort with ambiguity, self-starter, resourceful, as I mentioned, dependable. I also touched upon some sensitive topics, likability, because you're truly at the center of these things. People have to like to work with you. I've been in a situation where people have not liked to work with me because I was too hard saying no, no, no to people. And I learned from that. Judgment and decision making is the number 1 personal attribute. So guys, you want to be a PM and want to stay a PM, get 8 hours of sleep, eat well, take care of yourself, because it is our brains, not our brawn, that we're actually being rewarded for. I should say that to myself and sleep a little bit more. My 5-year-old keeps me up a lot. But good decision making, a strong sense of judgment, trade-offs, the research, the thought behind it, what I also call critical thinking skills, basically the ability to be able to take 10 different points of view and synthesize that into a single roadmap or a feature that folks can align on, is critical thinking skills, which manifests in good decisions. Good decisions, when you make good decisions over a period of time, people learn to trust you. People learn to respect you. And these are all very important things in product management, in terms of having the trust and the influence and the respect to be able to get things done. And as you know, product management is one of those fields where your success is dependent on other people doing their thing, and those guys don't report to you. So you have to get things done at even the most junior level in product management. So when you make good decisions, and that means when you have the data behind it, the research behind it, the thinking behind it, the communication behind it, and actually invest time and actually, please go and read about how good decisions are made and how you communicate. There are umpteen TED Talks, about this in itself. These are great for product managers to be able to develop very early on in their career, because trust, influence, respect, cross-functional coordination, everything stems from knowing that that product manager, who's the captain of the ship, is making the right decisions to get that ship to the right destination, despite all the stormy seas that may happen along the way. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then, obviously, you guys did say comfort with ambiguity. We never have all of the information that we need. Never. A decision and a data point is never perfect. I've looked at enough data. I've started my career as a conversion PM at eBay. My job was to be able to make people bid more. And I looked at more conversion data that you could probably imagine. But I will tell you, after doing that for 4 years at eBay, the conclusion was that data is only one part of the story. And even the data can only tell you that much. So that comfort with the ambiguity, one, the awareness that data is only one part of the story, and actually doing other things to be able to measure the success of your product, and the comfort with that ambiguity and still being able to make a good decision in the midst of that is a key product management skill, and truly something that separates the good and the great. Okay, so the next is the number one strength. If product leaders had to put number one strength that a product manager had, what would that be? Across various dimensions. And the number one strength is problem solving. I actually truly expected customer empathy. Now, you could say that there's a little bit of a margin of error here, but even within the margin of error of 10%, problem solving still actually quite trumps what we're actually looking for. But in a way, they're also related. Who are you trying to solve problems for? Hopefully there is a customer, there is an experience, there is a group, there is a market, something out there in terms of a problem that you're trying to solve. That leads to more of the product market fit. But I think one of the things tactically also as a product manager is they solve problems on a daily basis. Hey, the last sprint, there's a bigger overrun that we actually expected. There's too much more than we have to accomplish. I don't think I can finish all of this in this sprint. What do you want me to do? That's a problem. You have to figure out the solution to that. UX designer is sick. They leave. You don't have your mock-ups in time. It's a problem. What do you do with that? Who do you think makes all these decisions? The product manager. And I think these problem-solving situations, whether it is at a strategic level of let's solve this problem for the customer, or these tactical execution decisions that we have to make on a daily basis in terms of solving problems, is the number one strength that my peers are telling me in terms of what they appreciate of a great product manager. Somebody who comes across as a problem solver, who thrives in that environment, who actually welcomes problems and actually takes those and resolves those is definitely appreciated. And I can tell you that we live in a world that is much more complicated. There are more problems, tactically, strategically, than what we would ever have and want. But these PMs who actually come in and take these problems and try to solve them are definitely appreciated. Customer empathy, communication, and you could say these are kind of in the margin of error, customer empathy and communication. A great PM is able to not only make these good decisions, but also being able to communicate those decisions very well in a way that people can understand it. So not just making a cool PowerPoint presentation and putting it out there and going, I'm done. But if your message is not reaching across to the business teams or to the customers, It's one-sided still, the communication. So having the maturity and the awareness to be able to make sure that you're not just putting a message out there, but is my message understood? Are people reacting to it? Do people like it, not like it? Well, like, what's the feedback? And actually engaging on that is actually a key product manager strength. Okay, some verbatims. Someone who understands the bigger picture. Product management is an influence role. You must win the trust and respect of your cross-functional team. This job is not for the faint of heart. You have to love solving problems or challenges because it is never straightforward. I just wanted to reiterate, product management is a much more strategic field than what we think it is. It is not a tactical writing requirements and tickets. It is about actually, part of your job is that, but a large part of the job is summarizing what we just talked about, achieving that product market fit and having the ability to be able to have frameworks to be able to achieve that. Good decision making, problem solving, and being able to communicate that effectively. So this is a very, very strategic role in terms of product management. So again, just summarizing, we have explosive growth and interest in product management. I think it's really important that you guys really think about what kind of a product manager do you really want to be. And what does your company and team need of you, and hopefully there's a match. If you want to be a great product manager in terms of skills, product market fit, translating business to technical requirements are the biggest attributes, good decision making, and the number one strength, problem solving.